Hi, all right, week three, and we finally made it to a week where you've got an exam. So let's talk about that first. Exam one is going to be open Monday and Tuesday, so 48 hours, midnight on Monday till 11:59 on Tuesday. I know a lot of times people may work during the day, you may have irregular hours, so just make sure to set aside some time during that 2 day window that like schedule it, that this is when I'm going to take the test. I think that's the best advice I could give you. I've had most of the time students who miss the exam is they're planning on doing it towards the deadline and something comes up, or they don't have a set time and it just kind of slips their mind. So just go ahead and like put it on the calendar Monday at 7 p.m. or whenever you've got some free time to do that. All right. So just a quick heads up, we did a practice exam last week, and for the most part, everybody did really well, turned it in without any issues. I did have a few people send me messages that said the link didn't work or something like that. And in all of those cases, what the problem was is you weren't going through the steps that I listed. That sounds like I'm trying to get on you. I promise I'm not. I know using Respondus in Blackboard Ultra is a little bit different. So just a quick reminder, you're going to have to download Respondus, and then you have to log into one ACCS Blackboard. It's going to look almost identical to our Blackboard, but this is hosted like by the state. And for whatever reason, you have to go to that Blackboard to actually take the exams. Now, for the test, like right below this overview where it says exam one, when you open that, I've got a link to there, and it's going to tell you you must log into here to access exams. So just read it, follow the instructions, and you'll be okay. But I say all that to say there were still a handful of students who did not take the practice exam. Now the due date is over, but I still want you to take that if you didn't take it last week, because I want you to work through and make sure that you know how to access the exams before the real 100-point test. All right, I would much rather you figure that out beforehand than have issues taking the real test and lose those points. All right, so that's Monday and Tuesday. Just make sure you set aside some time to do that. We use Respondus with Monitor, the webcam thing. And it's timed, but you've got 65 minutes to answer like 65 questions, which is way more than enough time. Honestly, like the average is probably 20 minutes students take this exam and they're done. So don't feel like you're going to have to use all that time. But if you do want to like reread your answers when you're done, or like double check and make sure you didn't make any little mistakes, you'll have time to do that. Okay. All right, so that's the big thing, but we still have some other stuff we're going to do this week. So after you have taken the exam, we're going to move on to the exam 2 material. So you need to watch chapter 3, which is on organic chemistry. I know we just did a chemistry chapter, but this is going to be talking about the molecules that make up living things. So it's a little different than the chapter 2 chemistry. Chapter 3 is going to be organic chemistry. So just the chapter 3 folder that's below this overview, open that up. Remember, you can print off a PowerPoint and then take notes using that, and then make sure that you also watch the videos and take any additional notes that I talk about in those videos. Make sure you do those as well. All right. You've got a review quiz underneath the Chapter 3 folder, so that is going to be due by Sunday, June the 19th. We've got a discussion board assignment. I know that we did the discussion board with Lab 1 last week, but this is different. This is in the Week 3 folder, or the Week 3 module that you're in right now. It's what we're going to do every week that we have a test. I'm going to give you a discussion board assignment, and that's going to be an assignment that's based on what we talked about in that unit. So for example, in Chapter 1, we talked about something called biodiversity. So for this discussion board assignment, I've posted a video of a scientist named E.O. Wilson. He just passed away recently. But he's an incredible scientist from Alabama. He was Harvard professor emeritus for a long time. But he's got a really good TED Talk where he talks about biodiversity and the different types of living things on Earth. So for this discussion board, you're going to, it's got all the instructions when you click on that link, but you're going to watch that video. And then after you watch that, you've got two things you have to do. You need to leave a post yourself with just a summary of the video, or you can just like describe a fact that you found was interesting. You can say how it related to something that we talked about in the lecture video. So you're going to make one original post. And then you also have to respond to one other student's post. All right, so leave a post yourself and then respond to one other student. And if you do that, you're good. Make sure that it's a little bit, it needs to have some substance to it. Don't just say like, wow, that was a neat video. You need to tell me more about But that's a 10-point assignment. All right. And then lastly for this week, you've got your second lab. This one is on biological macromolecules. That's going to match up with what we talked about in the Chapter 3 lecture. So in this one, there's about 3 or 4 different parts to it, but you're going to be testing different substances to see if they contain certain chemicals. So you'll have a starch test, you'll have a reducing sugar test, you'll have a protein test, you'll have a lipid test. A bunch of these substances, the chemicals that are in your lab kit, you're going to use that to test your different materials. All right. Now the heads up on this one is that you do have to provide a lot of material. You don't have to do that every time, but on this lab, it wants you to provide a lot of stuff. These are like perishable items that they couldn't ship. So for example, like an egg, it says like 2% milk, a russet potato. They obviously couldn't like send milk in the lab kit. So just make sure that you have some of that on hand. If you don't, you might need to make a grocery run in the middle of the week so that you'll have that whenever you're ready to do the lab. All right, so just read through all that. It's very similar to last week's lab. You're going to click on, there's a folder that says Lab 2. It'll tell you all the material that you need, and then there will be a link to get to SI Cloud, which is our lab website. And then just make sure that you've got all that material below. That looks like a long list, but you probably have things like paper towels, dish soap, pen or pencil, fork, spoon, things like that. Just check for some of the other stuffs like the egg and milk and make potato. Make sure that you have all those. All right. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to let me know. Thanks.